Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks for having this hearing, and thank you to all of you for sharing your thoughts on a really important subject. Commissioner Carr, we always appreciate you coming to South Dakota and climbing towers and operating heavy farm equipment. And quite a proficiency at pheasant hunting too. So, but you have seen, I think, a number of carriers that are beginning to employ or at least invest in 5G networks across the country, including in places more rural areas like South Dakota and my home state. And I'm wondering if there's, as you look at the things that are happening out there, there's still work, I think, that needs to be done to ensure that all areas of the country reap the benefits of the new technology. And I'm wondering maybe if you could speak to some of the items that the FCC has been working on to facilitate the deployment of 5G and whether or not Congress should build upon those efforts with legislative initiatives like the Streamlined Small Cell Deployment Act.
Thank you, Senator, for the question. And from my perspective, the end goal for us is to make sure every community in the country has a fair shot at next-gen connectivity. And I spent a lot of time in South Dakota and seen firsthand the progress that's being made there. Sioux Falls has small cells live today that are providing 5G service. I think that's a much better indicator of where we stand as a country than the first time 5G lights up in New York or San Francisco. I was on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, and fiber is being built out there in the next couple years, nearly every location, and that's going to help power next-gen services. But we're certainly not at the mission accomplished phase yet. One important step we're taking at the FCC is our vote next week to establish the Digital Opportunity Fund for rural America. That's going to help support even more builds across rural America. And to your point, the bill that you all have been working on here, the Small Cell Deployment Act, would help codify and extend a lot of the modernization efforts that we've been attempting to do with the FCC, and that would mark another significant win for U.S. leadership in 5G, so I support that.
Thank you, and thank you for everything you and your fellow commissioners at the FCC are doing to advance the cause of building out not only the getting hopefully the spectrum available, but also the infrastructure that's necessary to carry it. Mr. Miller, do you have any additional thoughts on deploying 5G networks or how the provisions outlined in the Streamlined Small Cell Deployment Act would specifically help NATE's member companies?
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Senator. 5G is going to have to be deployed in masses. The sheer quantity is tremendous as compared to traditional technologies that have been built. So streamlining and standardization is imperative for success from a contractor perspective.
Ms. Youngers, the Mobile Now Act established the Dig Once policy, and as policymakers, are there refinements that we should be considering to the Dig Once provisions?
Thank you, Senator, and yes, thank you for those. Oh, sorry. I thought I did. Thank you, Senator, and thank you for the question, and of course for the Dig Once policies. In general, of course, for efficiency reasons, we support Dig Once policies, and my members and our association are constantly looking at ways to improve those. We support those efforts, and we stand ready to work with you on those. I don't think we have any specific recommendations at this time, but we can certainly provide more written in the record. But as a general matter, our association supports those Dig Once policies for the efficiency reasons.
Ms. Bloomfield, anything to add to that?
Well, I think you know better than a lot of people how difficult it is for small companies to actually deal with a lot of those different barriers. And one of the things that I had the opportunity on serving on the FCC's BDAC Council was to be able to see how important it is going to be to harmonize and streamline. And I think the initiatives that you've put forward are things that our association very strongly endorses. So thank you for your leadership.
Commissioner Carr, as we discussed at a field hearing that I held last year in South Dakota, it's imperative that the United States lead in the deployment of next-generation broadband services, and in order to achieve that goal, we've got to make sure we have the necessary workforce to build out these services, particularly in rural areas. And you mentioned in your testimony that you're working with the National Association of Tower Erectors to establish more community college programs like those at Southeast Tech in my home state to train and graduate more workers who are ready to help build out these next-generation networks. So could you briefly elaborate on the progress being made and whether or not the FCC is coordinating with other relevant agencies like the Department of Labor and Education, departments I should say of Labor and Education, to address the workforce needs in the communications industry?
Thank you, Senator, for the question. The FCC has convened a working group that can bring together a wide range of stakeholders to help address this issue. And to your point, I think we need to continue to work to expand community college programs. It can cost about $13,000 over the first 6 months to train a tower tech in-house. A significant portion of those costs can be saved through short-term community college programs. I think hearings like this are going to go a long way in helping to stand up more of those and creating opportunities. Your leadership helped identify this for Southeast Tech and help them get their program across the finish line. I think if we can stand up a few more and we're working towards that, that's going to help open up opportunities for families, but also serve the national imperative of getting this infrastructure built out.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And, Mr. Chairman, I've got a letter I'd like to get entered in the record, too. It's from the U.S. Telecom regarding the letter of credit in the FCC's Rural Digital Opportunity Fund.